Sideways is the first DC comic book to reference DC's Dark Knight's Metal directly and how it impacted the world around it. Let's see what that means for the characters. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Ira Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should go back to the comic book shop for or not. So make sure you subscribe to get some of these every single week. The book that I want to talk about right now is Sideways #1, which is the third part of DC's New Age of Heroes, and a book that follows along a teenager that's been impacted by the events of DC's Dark Knight's Metal during a trip to Gotham. This gave him powers, the ability to basically rip space-time, and we're going to see what kind of consequences that has on his life, as well as the greater DC universe. So let's jump in and see exactly what we got. In the third comic book from DC's New Age of Heroes, we get introduced to Sideways, a teenager, somebody that's in high school that has the ability to step through rifts inside the universe to locations that he chooses. Anywhere that he wants to be, he can go. So to open up this book, we've got the first trifold cover that we get on every brand new DC New Age of Heroes book, and the art by Kenneth Rocafort is pretty fantastic, and it gives you a sense that there's going to be a lot more involved in this book than just jumping through universes back and forth. However, we do open up in a very standard way for most teenagers, and that's interacting with other kids of their own age. Ernestine is brushing her teeth, and ultimately Derek gives her a bit of a scare, which results in some comedic moments inside her bedroom. We find out that she's kind of like this closet costume maker. She's into cosplay, she's wearing this great onesie, but the real essence of this interaction is that she is the one there to support him, one of the few people that actually knows that he has these abilities, so it's the confidant, it's the trust factor that's going into these things. We immediately learn that, first off, he has the ability to jump through worlds, but he's also got other powers that are associated with it. He's got strength, so he's stronger than an average human, and then probably at that same time he's got enhanced durability, those kind of things, but we don't necessarily know exactly what's going on with Derek and his powers. We do find out that Ernestine has a twin sister, but immediately after that we bounce back to his parents. So when you see the first opening of the parents, you find out that Derek is adopted, or at least you find out that these aren't his birth parents and they've taken him over custody of him for some reason or not, and they're both relatively important professionals, especially his mom. His mom seems to be a relatively sophisticated person that has a lot on her plate, so she's got to support her son, but she can tell that there's a lot of things that are going on that are causing him some issues at this point in time. And we get the interpretation that the thing that happened to him was what happened in Gotham during Dark Knight's Metal, which makes this the first book to really reference directly the events of Dark Knight's Metal inside the main DC continuity, letting everybody know that this is something that happened and it's something that's going to have repercussions throughout the rest of the DC universe. Of course, being a relatively common teenager, Derek is mostly ignoring his mom, even though she's showing concern for him. And the interaction between him and his friends is not necessarily done in your typical word bubbles, it's done in text message bubbles, which is a relatively new descriptor for me. It's not something that I've really seen a lot in comic books, and it seems to be pretty effective, especially when conveying the communication styles of younger people that are inside. They're far more into their phones than they are talking to people in person or communicating with people over the phone, like actually talking to them. As he kind of daydreams and drifts off into the world around him, leaving everything kind of behind, we get the flashback to what happened inside Dark Knight's Metal, what happened to him inside Gotham. So when the appearance of Challenger Mountain happened inside Gotham, wrecking everything and splitting the earth open, he fell into a crevice and didn't fall into the mountain, he fell through the mountain. So he was impacted by the matter from the Dark Universe, which has led him to have these kind of powers. However, when he crashed into the ground, he blacked out and has no recollection of what's going on after that. He doesn't necessarily have all the information. One thing is clear, and that's that he's not the most popular kid in school to begin with, and just having this event happen inside Gotham has made him even more ostracized from his fellow people. Of course, you are still interacting with Ernie, but he has a goal in mind. He's going to test out his powers, his new suit that Ernie made him, and he's going to do something that most kids want to do anyway. He's going to become a YouTuber. He's going to get famous on Twitch or live streaming and things like that. And as a superhero, he's not necessarily going to be saving people. He's going to be going different places and showing people, like showing off his powers. That's his whole idea. So he starts up his live stream on his banana phone, opens up a rift, and stumbles into a lake where he's kind of dealing with all these things. But all of a sudden, this powerful, omniscient voice hops into his head and is just like, "Stop, you've caused an ultimate infraction." And at this point in time, it's like a kid running away from the cops. So he opens up rifts and he starts jumping through various parts of reality, ending up in Ernie's room and all kinds of different places. And then all of a sudden, he's in the sky up above New York City. which I'm going to have to point out, Kenneth Rocafort has done a fantastic job with the art in this book as far as the character designs and the rest of the situation, but this is probably the weakest point of the book because you can easily tell that this is a photograph of New York City that has been filtered or manipulated or at least taken inspiration of. There's just too much common similarities to the actual landscape of New York City for it to be an actual hand-drawn drawing. And I mean, I would be extremely impressed if I'm wrong, but it just looks a little bit cheaper than everything else, especially when you take into consideration the next page where we see this judge of, cosmic space-time that is here to sentence Sideways to death. And that's where we kind of end issue number 1. Overall, I'd say that Sideways is not necessarily the strongest component. I do understand that it's reaching out to a slightly younger audience, and I like that fact. I found that it was kind of engrossing when you're dealing with those different relationships that are happening, but the subject matter is what really got me interested in it to begin with, so I want to take a deeper dive into exactly what's causing Sideways' powers to operate, how he's going to be manipulating them in the future, how we can use them to kind of help out the DC universe, and explore the DC Dark Universe a little bit more. Hopefully, because we're going to be bringing Grant Morrison onto the book eventually, it's going to be able to explore that in a lot more detail. But as of right now, I'm a little bit hesitant on it. DC's New Age of Heroes hasn't really come out of the gate as strong as I was hoping for, but I've got to give it some time so that way it can develop and people can find their footing inside these concepts. However, I want to know what you guys are thinking too, so hit me up in the comments down below so that way we can have a conversation about this, DC New Age of Heroes as a whole, and everything else. So, as always, if you liked the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows, and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.